Welcome to the Drop the Needle podcast, your backstage pass to the corporate jungle. I'm your host, Jim Alstott, and here, industry titans step up to the mic, sharing their epic journeys. We're hitting the high notes and the low notes of their careers, creating a symphony of success. This isn't just another interview show, it's where truth bombs are dropped and secrets are revealed. So grab your conductor's baton, because who knows, this just might help you compose the next huge hit of your career. Are you ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Drop the Needle podcast. I am your host, Jim Alstott, and I am so happy you all decided to join us. We have an interesting guest on our show today, and by interesting, I mean interesting in a good way. In today's episode, we have Ms. Tairi Grace with us. Tairi's a licensed clinical social worker and a 500 RYT, that's registered yoga teacher. As a licensed clinical social worker, Tairi has been in private practice for over 14 years. Tairi holds a master's degree in social work from Aurora University as well. She specializes in children and adolescents, and her expertise lies in sexual abuse and trauma work. She began studying yoga to find a non-traditional approach to wellness that incorporated holistic healing and is influenced by many styles and methodologies of yoga. Her instruction style is theory-based, which meets the individual client's needs and also blends hatha yoga with therapeutic applications such as ego psychology and intrapersonal neuroscience. And by the way, Tairi is the owner of Sense of Samadhi Yoga Studio in Yorkville, Illinois. As if she weren't busy enough, Tairi also owns and operates Grace Holistic Center for Education, a pre-kindergarten through 12th grade school. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Tairi Grace. Hey, Tairi.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Oh, well, thank you for being our guest today. I really appreciate you taking the time. So, in the intro, we talked a little bit about the school, the background that you have. I mean, just briefly from the standpoint with your LCSW
Yes.
is licensing. So your practice with regard to counseling. But what we didn't talk about is your very interesting start. In a conversation that I had with Tairi earlier, she had mentioned her involvement in law enforcement or the legal system. So I wanted to let everybody hear it from Tairi, how she started, what her career started in, what field. So Tairi, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about how things started for you?
Sure. I actually started my career as a juvenile probation officer in Cook County. I grew up in Forest Park, so I was familiar with the area. It was a really incredible job. I got to have a lot of freedom. I had a lot of time to work one-on-one with the children, a lot of freedom in the way I worked one-on-one with the children, could come up with really creative ways to help them in their lives, which was incredible. So we had court every week. I loved that piece. And yeah, long commute. At the time I had 4 children. And so that's why I decided to go into private practice.
Excellent. That was going to be my next question. So that getting in or transitioning into your private practice with LCSW and then getting involved with counseling. So it seemed like that's probably, well, let me ask you, did you start out in children, working with children, or did you go to family practice, or how did that work?
Yeah. So when I was the Cook County Juvenile Probation, I had my bachelor's in social work. I then began the master's program. So working full time, then going to school in the evening. So I got my master's in social work. I wanted to work in a more clinical way. So juvenile probation actually opened up a whole division for clinical juvenile probation. So I started there. But then with the commute being so long and having 4 children at home, I knew that I needed to do something closer. So I sat for my clinical license. So I got my license and then decided to go into private practice. It happened really quickly. It was really scary to jump in that. I knew a woman that had a small room for rent, and I thought, well, I'll just do this part-time. But it ended up that like everything else in my life, I just went full speed ahead and went into private practice.
Well, you sound like a slacker, first and foremost. Working full-time, going to school full-time, getting your master's degree. That's
if I'm not busy, I'll create something. That's generally
there
been
you go.
the way I do things. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So then we've gone to, we went from juvenile probationary officer to private practice and yoga. So tell me about yoga. How did that feed into everything?
Sure. So with the private practice and getting to know a lot of the families in the community, as well as some of the difficulties that I was having with my own children, my oldest son being neurodiverse and having some struggles with anxiety in the public school system, I began to think that a lot of the world pushes psychotropics without addressing the underlying conditions. I just decided in a moment that I needed to be a yoga teacher and I needed to open up a yoga studio. So I called around to find out which yoga studio teacher training began and ended first because, I'm a now person. So I jumped right into the 200-hour yoga teacher training program. Before I graduated, I had already opened up the yoga studio.
Oh my gosh.
So
Talk about
that's
taking a
kind of
leap.
how that worked out.
That's fantastic. So what is it? Was it Martin Luther King is like taking that step without knowing where you're going to land? There was some, I butcher quotes all the time.
I really believe that there's no right or wrong. There's only right or left. And, if you take a wrong turn, the universe will always reroute you. So I've never been much to think about a decision I want to do. I just jump in and do it.
Go. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That really is I have a friend who uses the reference all the time, take your hands off the steering wheel. And that's kind of the approach. I have to say, though, and that is not necessarily willy-nilly. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to let the universe happen. You're actually working towards something, and it seems like the final decision. It's not like you're just waiting for things to happen. You're putting yourself in that position to have
there's definitely a balance between
occur.
Yes, definitely. I'm action oriented. Of course, that I believe that there's, a spiritual journey, and we all end up on whatever path we're supposed to be on. But there's the action that us humans have to take to get there. You can't just sit back, right?
Right. That's exactly right. So now we go from that teaching to the next, which is more than just for your children. It is a school.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, what inspired you to found a school that prioritizes mindfulness, empathy, and the illumination of human spirit alongside traditional academics?
Well, so I have the 4 children. The one struggled quite a bit in school. The second son was extremely smart, and they were both coming home, one upset because he was struggling because the emotional distress was getting in the way of learning. And the second one was so smart that he was bored. And in the area that I'm in, there weren't a lot of options. And I grew up in Forest Park, like we said, and there were gifted programs, and there were a lot more options for diversified learning. But here, with those 2 boys, I just thought there has to be something different. We push academics, but I believe that a person, regardless of age, has to be balanced emotionally and have a good sense of self and be calm, right? The nervous system calm and feel safe and secure. And then the doors open for, these amazing journeys academically. So
Agreed.
I opened the school. Everybody laughs at me. How did you open the school? And I put it on Facebook. Who wants to open a school with me? And that's how that
kidding.
started.
Holy cow. Holy cow.
No idea what I was doing at all.
Wow. Well, that's a ballsy move. I'm not going to kid you. That is, talk about taking a leap of faith. You did it right there.
Yeah.
So I I know that, we have public schools, we have the private schools, we have the parochial schools, and each has their own, I don't know, nuance, right? So
Sure.
with yours, you're talking about a prioritization of mindfulness and empathy and that well-rounded behavior. How do you define mindfulness in the context of your school's curriculum? And what type of practices do you employ to cultivate it in your school?
Sure. I'm tangenting with you very briefly, and then we'll come right back. I also want to
Sure.
say we have the foundation of being Illinois State Board of Education recognized. We are also, we haven't announced it yet, College Board accredited, which was a huge
Oh,
undertaking. So we have that substance. A lot of people need that substance,
right.
when we're talking about the school. So mindfulness is viewed sometimes as, foofy and
Yeah,
intangible.
woo-woo stuff. Right.
Sure.
Right.
So
Yeah, you know
saying
what though?
that,
That
go
that's
ahead.
that's important. I'm very happy that you said that because it's not like this is in some sort of commune or compound where there's free range chickens and things like that going around and everybody's wearing burlap sacks to school. It's not like
Balance.
that. You're right. So I don't want anybody to get the mental picture that that's it, because it isn't. And I've actually been to the school. I've seen the school.
Brick and
It's
mortar.
set up. Yeah, right. It's a brick and mortar school. There's no yurts out there.
It's a good
It's
idea,
really
though.
well designed. Yeah, you know what? The yurts are pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, but um, so then there has to be an interesting balance, at least from my perspective. And I've not been in the school when class has been in session to see the the daily workings, but I guess I'm looking at it from an outsider's perspective, where I do have an understanding of mindfulness and empathy, compassion, and a
Hmm.
lot of the things that your school really promotes and I would say really infuses or weaves into the academic
Sure.
process. But how does that come into everything? I mean, how does it surface? Is it just I'll stop because I might answer your question. So how does it get
Okay.
into
Um,
the school?
so, um, as we said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have my degree from Aurora University. And since the inception of the school, we've utilized interns in the bachelor social work program and the master's social work program. It's always been myself and then a mindfulness director. So each student has a check-in with an intern. We call it a proactive wellness check-in. Society has called us a therapeutic school at some point because of that. Therapeutic
Hmm.
means non-public for students who aren't able to be in a regular ed program. That's just important to say regarding,
Okay.
the societal view of wellness. But we want the students to feel comfortable speaking to someone. We want to normalize that, talking about your feelings, and have the interns be someone they can speak to on a weekly basis, not someone to go to when you're in trouble or when you're broken or when something is
Right.
wrong. So that's a huge component of the school. The interns also run mindfulness groups. So the mindfulness groups, the theme this month is Satya, which means truthfulness. So we have the
Mm.
Sanskrit yoga component of the word, but then we bring that Satya idea, the truthfulness, into the entire month of programming. There's a whole document for it, things to do at home that we give to the parents. So the integration is school-wide and parent-wide as well. There's
So they're
integration for
totally immersed
teachers in the
then.
classroom. And then most of my teachers, Teacher Institute Day, for example, begins with yoga at the yoga studio. And then
Ah,
we come
good.
back to school and do whatever academics or administrative things that we need to do. Most
That's
of
very cool.
several, I guess I should say, of my teachers, my core teachers, have also been through yoga teacher training, or they have a social work or psychology degree or some type of mindfulness training as well. So really, it is actually incorporated into every admin's training, and then that translates into the classroom as well.
Very good. So I was going to
Mhm.
ask you
Sure.
about yoga itself, because obviously that's a big part of your life. So how do you incorporate that into, or do you incorporate that into the day-to-day at the school? Is that part of the
We do.
curriculum? That's
We
fantastic.
begin with yoga. So we are preschool through 12th. I don't think we talked about that. And we are only preschool through 12th because when I opened the school, I said, let's do all of it. You know, most schools start with just like a third, fourth classroom and then add on as they're progressing. But since we
Right.
talked about my temperament previously, we'll just start big, right?
To
So
go
the
all in,
first
yeah.
15 minutes, why let there be limitation?
Right.
So the first 15 minutes is the 5th through 12th are combined. So it's a nice time to give some morning announcements. Each of my different staff members teach on a different day. Some of them have had no yoga training, and then some of them are yoga teachers themselves. So it could be a nature walk outside. It could be some type of meditation that's spoken or played. It could be actual physical asana. With the younger students, maybe it's a game. And then the second 15 minutes is the kinder through fourth that join together. So it's a nice way to start the day with the whole community. And the high schoolers, you know, not to pick at them at all, but sometimes they don't think yoga is so cool. So if they're opting out of yoga, then they would start their day at 8:45 with academics. But for the most part, we have pretty good buy-in.
That's great. You know, and it's funny that you mention the high schoolers not necessarily buying into that, because I've got 3 sons. One's finishing up college this year, and I've got a high school senior and a high school sophomore. And I've asked both of them, hey, why don't, would you like to come with me to class one night to just try it out? Nah, I'm good. I'm like, well, yeah, but you're not. You are. You're great. You're fine just the way you are. However, wouldn't you like to expose yourself or stretch your walls a little bit to just try something new and maybe in the process find out if you like it before you say no?
Sure.
And I you know what? First of all, I guess it's high school age boys, which are typically, not to paint them into a corner, but are typically a little bit more closed-minded as it relates to trying new things. But maybe down the road, it's one of those things that you just keep it open and available, and hopefully
I hope to meet
at some
them
point
someday.
in time. You know what? I would love that. I would love that. They're both beautiful young men, and just better people than I am. That's what I'll always tell people. I said they're better than I am, and I suppose that's the goal as a parent.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the things that was probably in mind with you as it relates to make it better than I had or than I was exposed to by founding the school and opening up the school, because I'm always amazed by someone that will say, I'm very spiritual. I meditate and I do this and I do that, and they're going through a laundry list of things that they're capable of, but in the process they close themselves off to everything else. And there was something that I saw like in a little Buddhist cartoon where a young monk comes into the master and he's telling him all of these things that he's certified in. He's this. And he said, well, my work is done. And he said, well, I just got here. And he said, well, your cup's full. There's no room for what I have. And so I find that to be interesting, that it's one of those things that when people keep professing some of those things, that they end up being closed off, and that there's their one way of getting things done.
My grandma used to say, practice what you preach, right?
Yeah, right. But this is my whole thing is as far as, and my wind up in the pitch is that there was a better way. There's a different way. Let's not even call it better, but I personally think it's better. There's a different way of going about educating people, because in my experience, and I have some friends that are educators too, that are in the public school system, and in my experience, in my opinion, a lot of times the public schools are almost forced to teach to the test, right? So in No Child Left Behind,
to
Correct.
those grades usually. Sure.
Right. Exactly. So I think what happens or what's sometimes lost is the human piece in all of this.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's interesting. So with your way of incorporating all of those things as well as the standard academic programs, how does your school compare to some of the other ones that I just mentioned? You know, obviously public school we know is
Sure.
what I just talked about, but what about somebody that's looking at, let's say, a parochial school or Montessori or the Waldorf schools or things like that? How does your program and your school differ from those?
Sure. So I don't know if I can speak so clearly or specifically about the other
Hmm.
schools, but I can, relay back to us. I also wanted to add that Friday is my day to teach the kids yoga, all
Oh, how
levels.
cool.
And I have a lot of neuroscience in my background. So I always try to teach them something about why we're doing yoga. Your brain is sitting on the base or the top of your spine, and why
Hmm.
we need to move and the connectivity in the brain. And so I always add the, science piece to make it more legitimate. But
That's
I
great.
think, we touched a little bit about how when a student feels safe and emotionally balanced, safe meaning not that just there's a threat coming, but safe to express themselves, safe to speak up, safe to be
Hmm.
assertive. Then the academic piece, it's easier for them to learn. So that piece we already touched on, but I think one thing that makes us different is the addition of the life skill component, because I know now with a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an almost 6-year-old, that it is so important that we are emotionally balanced and sound. It is so important that we
Right.
can learn and we have, a strong foundation of some type of knowledge base, whether it welding, right? If you're not a traditional student,
Right.
but life skills, right? We're missing that. I think is what sets us the most apart is the focus that we have at all levels to have these students be able to go out and be successful in the world, whether it be their relationships, their jobs, or in their academics. For example, third, fourth grade just went to the store. They had to budget themselves to make
Oh,
a
wow.
salsa that
Okay.
then they made together. So I think that is pretty unique to begin teaching these type of things at the beginning of this age range. We teach about fixing holes in the walls. We teach about culinary. We teach about finances. We're huge on community. So we will bring whoever wants to speak, bankers and chiropractors, anybody that's in our family unit or outside of the community to come in and speak about real world experiences.
That's great. And
Mhm.
I think that that's something, and again, I'm not I hope you don't think I'm speaking for you, because
No.
I'm really not. I'm just from a parent's perspective of kids that have gone through the system and are in the system.
Hmm.
There are a number of things that I think are omitted. And let's even go beyond K through 12 or pre-K through 12 into
Sure.
college. I think, unfortunately, sometimes those basic life skills don't get passed along for whatever reason.
Right.
And and then all of a sudden we have these kids, young adults, that are thrust
Hmm.
out into the world and they're in over their heads really quickly because they
I'm
don't
seeing that.
have
Yeah.
those skills. Right. And I have too. And I've heard from a number of my friends. See, I started late with kids, so um, a lot of my
What age?
friends.
What age is
Uh,
late?
what age is late? So 23 is my oldest. I'm 58, so 35 for him.
Okay.
But for my youngest,
Hmm.
he's going to be 16, so 42 for
Yeah.
him. So it's a little bit
Those are good
later.
ages. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit later, but the with the other with my friends, they're talking about their kids trying life and then coming back home. And
Mm.
so one of my friends is very self-aware, and he just said, "Well, I made the mistake with my oldest boy that I didn't have him get a job while he was in high school. I didn't have him balance his checkbook. And I said, well, that wasn't a mistake. There's a million books out there on how to parent, but each child's different, and you're different
Right.
than any other person. So it's not a mistake. It was certainly a learning, a teaching moment or a teachable
Yeah.
moment.
You learn as you
And
go.
he's right. So he went right. So he's got two younger girls, and so he's done that with them. So they are aware of costs of things. They're involved with cooking, with cleaning, with all of those things, because he didn't do that with his oldest boy. And
Yeah,
I think that happens a lot because you just
definitely.
don't know, and I'm no different. The younger two are definitely more self-sufficient than my oldest was, because it was just the way it was.
Right.
But I think that's a unique perspective, and that was one of those things that I was going to ask you. And maybe a better question would have been previously is, how does your approach to education differ than traditional models? And then you just had answered that. And I like that, because at some point in time, you're no longer in a classroom, but you use the philosophy, the
Right.
world's a classroom, life's a classroom, and it is. But there's also expectations associated with a lot of your activities as you start to get older, and like
Yes, that's true.
getting a job, earning a living, and then being able to budget and all those other things. But so how how have you created the balance between the academic rigors and the importance for nurturing the emotional or spiritual and empathetic well-being of the kids?
I'm trying to think of a way to encompass, preschool through 12th on this, because there's such a vast, difference in the ages.
Well, let's break it down then. Let's break it down. So
Sure. So
let's
our
go K
teachers,
through 8.
our teachers do follow state standards. So that's kind of their guideline on planning. So if a student, for example, would leave here in 5th grade, they would still have been taught at the same level as what they would need to know going into 6th. That's a question we get quite a bit.
Gotcha.
But because we're not funded by the state, we have more permissions to teach as we please. So if we want to go off on a tangent for a week learning about whatever it is, we can. So we have that autonomy in being able to teach the way we want, at what extent of time we want. So we do have all of the standard classes, the math and the science and English and Spanish and all of the things that you would at public school. But we also have specific electives like horseback riding or skateboarding and tumbling, culinary. We did around the world, where the students went to India, and the teacher actually went to an Indian restaurant and brought in food.
Cool.
AI art we are doing right now.
Yes.
Guitar lessons.
Oh,
yeah. So I think it's a nice mix when you look about balance of the standard classes, but then we are outside quite a bit. We are doing the mindfulness. We are a small school, so we don't need passing periods. So the kids do have a lot of time that they're not seated in a desk learning like traditional classrooms are.
Right.
We have bean bags on the ground, from preschool through 12th. If they want to sit there and they prefer that, or they learn better that way, that's fine. So we have non-traditional seating options, and a lot of opportunity to get out of the desk and to stretch your legs and to get outside into the sun. And I think that's where we find that balance, movement, and moving the body.
There's a lot of science that is behind the benefit of freeing up the brain, the mind, in those instances when you actually have some sort of physical movement, and especially being in nature too, right? I mean, that's I'm a master trainer for I'm certified in the CIJ Clarity Catalyst programs, and that was based on Dr. Michael Ray from Stanford University. But he talks about the importance of the importance of being in nature in order to foster creativity, to open your mind for new possibilities, empathy, and it's
Yeah.
I absolutely think that they're
And I even hear in public
very
school, we
set.
just did a tour this morning that as a consequence, they remove recess. And I just saw that on some
Right.
moms group as well, which is, let's talk about going through a loop of disaster. So the kids are already struggling and not sleeping well and, high school, of course. And then we're going to remove the opportunity to get out and reverse some of
Yeah.
those things. And then we expect them to, be these productive,
And they're
you know,
alienated again too,
sure.
because
Mm-hmm.
they're so you're outcast. You did something. You're bad. You're going to be sitting here by yourself.
Yeah.
That's coming from somebody who had to do that a lot, by the way, when I was
Because
in
what are you
school growing
learning?
up.
You're learning that the world is not safe, that there's no help coming.
Right.
And, you have absolutely no idea then about how to solve your own problems and navigate through those things, right?
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And that's one of those things looking back. My mom's been passed away in 1994, but
Sorry.
that was one of those things that we talked about. I basically spent in grade school my entire third grade year in the hall because the teacher, I'd go in there, she'd just go, I don't want to deal with you today. Get out in the hall. I'm like,
Mm.
if that was then,
So what
right? I
did that
mean,
teach you? That you're bad, right?
right. And I can't be inquisitive. I can't have energy. I can't be
Right.
curious. Put your hand down. I've got a question. Put your hand down. You're disruptive. Put your hand down.
Stifling.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think that quite candidly, and again, talking about myself, was a turning point for me in the learning process where I decided, you know what, I'm going to shut this off because reading and everything else came very easy to me because I was fortunate. My grandmother was a reading specialist for the school system. So I was
Oh,
able
wow.
to read books before I was in kindergarten. So I went to
Mm.
kindergarten. That's why when I was in kindergarten, they were talking about trying to promote me to second grade, from kindergarten to second grade.
Wow. That's a huge gap.
Right. And my mom was, my grandmother was the one that said, no, no, that's not going to work.
So maybe you weren't being challenged, which led to the behavior then.
Correct. And that was
Yeah.
absolutely it. And that's when it's such an early age. And this is the reason I'm saying this too, is for any of the listeners that are out there are parents, or any of the listeners that are out there that might be educators, be aware of what sort of impact, long-lasting impact, that you have on your students, on kids that are eventually going to be adults. That, again, there's no one right way, right?
Right.
There's multiple ways, and again, I think that being in the public school system in particular, then, because you could get away with slapping somebody with a ruler, taping their mouths, I mean, like literally taking tape and spiraling it around somebody's
That is
face and
awful.
head. Well, I had that happen a lot to me.
Oh my
If you're not
gosh,
going to close
Jim.
your mouth, I'm going to tape your mouth closed. So yeah,
Fear.
there's so many of those things that you couldn't get away with today, right? Thank God. thank God you can't get away with that stuff. But that's a little bit of a tangent, only from the standpoint that I'm going to circle back and say that I believe that this is an important
Yes.
form of education. In a definitely, I think it's an important option as far as education is concerned. That, again, public schools, there's absolutely nothing wrong. Well, I shouldn't say that.
There's just
Public schools are
limits
fine.
based on class
Correct.
size and the leadership.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. And everybody has to follow a very strict guideline, typically, in the public school systems. And I look at it, so you had mentioned, one of your sons just kind of being bored, right? Well,
Yes.
my youngest is like crazy smart, and he finishes things. He doesn't have to worry about homework. He typically has everything done by the time he gets out of his class. And when he was younger in the grade schools, the teachers would say, he's talkative, and he would be done with his homework before anybody else in the classroom. And he said, well, can I grab a book and read? No. So I went to the student teacher conference with my wife once, and that was the last time I was invited back, by the way, because what do you mean?
Yeah.
I said, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Well, we have other kids to teach in this. Absolutely. Totally get that. So why would you stifle somebody's desire to improve, practice, different things like that? As it relates to reading a book, what harm is that going to do? I mean, how is that going to affect or impact somebody else negatively? And she said, well, if he reads a book, everybody's going to want to read a book. And I went,
that sounds wonderful.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. Well, we've got a very tight schedule that we have to adhere to, and we don't.
Right.
So I excused myself.
We have mixed grades here, which really help. Physically, children's bodies are different, right? Academically, everyone is different. So with the mixed grades, the teachers are really able to teach the students. So if we're in 5th grade, but we're at 6th grade math, those classes are combined. So the teacher can not limit a student who needs to learn more or wants to advance or is learning at a higher level just because they're in a certain grade. We do like Kinder Plus is what we call it. So if someone's in Kinder, but they can advance up to math in 1st, 2nd grade, we'll move them up. We've actually
but they're still physically in that group.
Yes.
But they're still in with their age appropriate group as they progress, but just from an educational.
A couple times where the student is like emotionally ready to move up and academically ready to move up, because we need those two components. And then we've moved a student up an entire grade as well. But because of those mixed classrooms and because we don't put children in a box, there is no box. And we really do tailor to the student and how they learn. And we believe education is 3 parts. So it's the parent, it's the staff, and it's the student. So parents have a huge say. Sometimes parents are just happy that their child is coming to school and they're happy. And then some parents want their kid on track for AP classes, which we also offer, or dual enrollment at a community college. And then we'll go whatever route you want us to go.
That's very nice. Well, and I think that's, I don't want to say luxury, but it could be termed that. But I think the ability and the freedom to be able to customize the educational experience for
the luxury. Child. Yeah, I haven't used that term yet, but I will now.
I guess I kind of see it. I guess I kind of see it as that when you don't have that, it seems like boy, that'd be nice to have that. One of those
sure.
What do they call that? Like on the cars, those when you get all the bells and whistles, like the luxury package,
the luxury models, the LS.
Yes,
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like it's that type of approach that. So it's just kind of nice. It's not just kind of one way, one size fits all.
Right. Some of my friends who are parents make fun of me because I'm known as the yes mom. I say yes to everything. I mean, I really do. Not terrible things, but most things, sure, why not? The joke is when my kids were little.
Fire.
Yeah, when my kids were little, they wanted to go outside and sit in the snow, like run outside naked. I mean, like little kids. And I was like, it's going to be cold, but let's give it a go, because that's a real life experience. And they didn't do that again.
Right.
So, I
although
believe
it's
my
healthy
job
now, right?
Yeah. now they're doing it.
Cold exposure.
It was
yeah. Cold
exposure 15 years ago.
Yeah, you're way ahead of the game.
But I believe, as an educator or as the director here and as a parent, our job is not to tell someone the way it is. It's to have them experience it for themselves, right? So that they can understand why the answer of 2 plus 2 is 4. There's a whole different learning ability and ability, to function in the world when you can problem solve on your own, right?
Yeah, it's a huge thing to have that Yeah, I think the sooner you're able to adopt and develop those skills, the better off you are. Because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I see it all the time as a, in the corporate world where these adults and these leaders struggle with the overwhelm that's associated with problem solving or conflict resolution and different things of that
Yeah.
nature. I mean, it's and so talking to some of the leaders that I deal with in certain companies, I let them know that most people aren't born with the skills that they're looking for. They're acquired and developed. So
Over time.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
And there's effort involved with it and all of those different things, but don't expect it to be an easy button all the time or a plug and play, because these things take time, and it is a practice, and there are areas where people need a little extra time to develop in that. So
Mm-hmm. You just touched on
back to some.
something really important
Sure, sure.
that I wanted to, say this a few times, but we're here again. So now is an opportune time. I think what's really important and what we do well is that teaching someone something is so important. But now what? Right now you have to practice it. It's just like,
Right.
you hear someone, they read the best book ever and it's life changing, but then they don't actually change their behavior. And so, what you've mentioned a few times is that it's so important to learn the thing, but now are we practicing it? Now, how are we implementing it into our lives so that it is a skill that we can take with us? And I feel like we do a really good job with that here as well.
That's great, because you're right. All the knowledge is, I don't want to say it's worthless, but it doesn't reach its full potential if it's not applied. You have to, at
100%.
some point in time, have to apply what you're picking up along the way to spread it along, or pass it along, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all of this going on, and I I guess I would call it a revolutionary approach to education. But how do you envision the long term effects of an education that emphasizes mindfulness, empathy, and spiritual growth on an individual's life and career choices, since we were just talking about people in corporate America?
It's really interesting to watch the students that have just come in for whatever reason, and then the students that have been here because we're going into our eighth or ninth, everybody knows math is not my strong point, year. And so some of the kids have been with us the entire time. So to be immersed in this type of culture for years, you can really see the difference in those students' coping skills, those students' ability to be assertive, their problem solving skills, the things that they're saying when there is conflict with peers. I mean, it's really beautiful to watch. And, like we said, you can learn something new, but then it takes a while to really develop that skill. So if we're talking about peer mediation and conflict resolution and assertiveness training and executive functioning, and they're practicing all of this while they're here, and it's integrated in the entire school, like the mindfulness program, and it's integrated into the home, I mean, you really see a substantial difference that has longevity. And so you're going into your job, like you said, or into college with the inner fortitude, I guess, and the experience to navigate those things. I think it's really a
Right.
beautiful thing. And
You
there's
know,
definitely a difference.
I could see
Mhm.
that. And I was just thinking about when you were mentioning essentially the all encompassing, or the it's immersive. So they have the immersive study programs. So especially in college, if you
Mhm.
have the immersive language programs, where if you're going to learn Spanish, you're going to Spain or Mexico for
100%.
a
Mhm.
semester. So, but this is, again, I'll
I
use
did that.
the term. Did you really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did not. I did not.
Did my
Um,
travel abroad in my first year of college, and man, that was the way to learn, the immersion, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been on just little junkets that where you have to learn basic Arabic or something like that. Is if you're in, like, when I went to Morocco, I was there
Yeah.
for a while, and you have to pick things up, and so you do, and out of necessity, and then there's a lot of different give and take on both sides, and it's a wonderful experience. But um, Yeah, I just think that the immersive approach to those things is
The key.
it's incredible. Yeah, it really is. It really is. So I know we have just a few more minutes here, but I'm curious to know what lessons you've learned about the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit through your experience as an educator and the founder. How has that impacted you, this journey?
That's actually our logo. On our logo, it's a lotus, and then in the lotus there is the triangles for mind, body, and spirit. Whatever, there's lots of the triangles mean lots of things, and then
Right.
a body for the physical piece, and the book for the academic piece. It is interrelated because if one is offline, then the others aren't functioning as effectively or appropriately as they could, and we just see that.
Right.
We all get dysregulated a bit at times. And that's another piece here. We'll teach the student to speak up for themselves, to be able to, take a walk if you need it. We give them that opportunity so we can self-regulate. When we talk about
And
mindfulness,
advocate.
I know I'm looping back a little bit, the self-awareness piece, right? It's
Right.
so important that we understand how we feel, but it's also so important to understand how the other person is feeling in our presence, right?
Right.
And it's so important to understand mindfulness isn't just about you being self-aware. It's about you understanding how your words and actions have other people feeling, right? And that's the interconnectedness as well, the duality of understanding both of those mindsets.
Right.
I went on a little tangent.
No. That's fantastic, and I
Okay.
appreciate you sharing that. Almost like a part B of this would be now looking back. So the school was founded in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously before that you had your experiences with the parole officer for the juvenile court system.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had your private practice, and then you still have your yoga
I still
and your
have all of
private
those, yeah.
practice. Right.
Can't let any of it
And
go.
well,
I've
so
been asked that. If you could let one thing go, what would it be? And there's really nothing. Those are all interconnected as well.
they're part of you, yeah, right now. I'm I'm just wondering if looking back on all of this, is there anything that you do differently or change?
If I had had some type of business background, it would have been easier, right, with the school.
Right.
But I'm a quick learner, so I guess if I would have had more foundation in that business aspect, if maybe I would have had more support in the area of founders and other people coming in that had that business acumen and
Sure.
finances, because coming in with not a group or a community of people that were helping me, I kind of
Right.
went on my own and just said I
Solo.
can do it just like everything else. That was really a tough hurdle
Right.
to build out the school. This is our second location now, but we rented in an industrial warehouse. So, that was difficult. So I guess, looking back at that, it would have been less of a struggle if I had more of a business background and more
Sure.
support financially.
No, that's
But
understandable.
yeah.
Everybody has their particular gifts that they bring to the party, right? And
Mhm.
it's rare that you find somebody that has everything.
Sure.
I've not run into that person yet, but maybe I will someday. Maybe I will
Yeah.
someday. But I've been pretty close so far. It's nice to have that, because then you're focusing in on what you're really good at. That person focuses in on what they're really good at, and then
Yeah.
together you become a formidable,
Sure. And I guess,
power.
again, it goes back to funding because, I'm the
Right.
executive director, but I'm also running this and I'm running that. And then when I opened the school, I was running the mindfulness program and I was doing all the mindfulness groups.
Yeah.
And people would say, well, who's your marketing person? Well, that's me too. Right. So small business,
Here,
especially
let me
with
put
this
my other
route.
hat on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to do it all. And so, yeah,
Right.
definitely if there was funding to have more support in various roles, then that would allow me to specifically work on just those things that I am good at. But, that is a challenge currently.
Sure. And And I think that's the old blessing and a curse, right? Because when you have funding, especially as it relates to state or federal funding, there are so many strings
Mm-hmm.
attached to that, which then, of course, limit your freedom to
Yeah.
do what you've found to be so successful so far.
Mm.
And
That is an interesting thing. So, when we're looking at the chakra system, for those of us who are familiar, the root chakra is the baseline, and that's our support, and we are grounded, and we are focused, and we are business minded. Right? And then the top is that crown, which we're creative, and those are our
right.
artists and our musicians. And it's been really interesting balance within me for those things, because I do come from a long line of artists. I do oil paint, but I am this free creative thinker, but I also have to be that grounded business piece. So it's like
Yeah,
these two pieces inside of me that are always struggling to find balance, right? They're like opposing pieces, but I have to be both, right?
I can relate to that. Very much so. And it causes a lot of dissonance sometimes in
100%.
our lives, and it's difficult. And, especially when it comes to yoga, I was, and I probably should have mentioned that earlier, that I attend Terry's yoga school. I love it. And I was so pleased that I wasn't the only male there, because oftentimes I am. I went to a retreat in Costa Rica where I was the only male participant. There was one other gentleman who we became friends with. He's a
Why
great
is
guy.
that?
I, I'm,
That's another
he-
podcast, but
yeah, you
what's
know
the
what?
quick answer?
You know what? I think early on I cared about it. Now I'm just curious. I don't,
Mm,
I don't, I don't care. I just show up, you know,
I
and,
love the idea of being curious, right?
yeah,
We talk
well,
about
I
that in
think,
yoga sometimes. Be curious to how
yeah,
this feels, but it's the same with the school,
sure.
It's helping to develop these curiosities, because if we're not curious about what's behind the door, then we're limited.
Agreed. And I
Yeah,
think curiosity removes judgment too.
100%.
I think when you're more curious about something, as opposed to coming in with preconceived notions or ideas and thoughts, it opens you up for other
Programming.
possibilities. Yeah, yeah, and yeah. Anyway, I digress. Um, so back to you. Is there
Yes.
anything that you'd like to promote before we wrap up today?
Um, so we're in Yorkville, Illinois. I don't know if we've discussed that or not, but we have students from all over. They come from 45 minutes away in all different directions because of the uniqueness of the school. We are at open enrollment point right now. So we are doing tours and trial days so that parents and students can decide if it's a good fit, or better decide, but make a better decision.
Mhm.
So I believe, as far as promotion goes, that's it. We'd love to, if you are interested or have more questions, happy to talk on the phone, or to have you come in and do a tour and meet everybody and see the school.
The website where people can go visit and investigate the school is
It's the acronym for Grace Holistic Center for Education. So it's GHCFE and then .org, because we are a nonprofit.
fantastic. Fantastic.
And if anybody wants to
Well,
support alternative learning, we will definitely be receptive for your support as well.
excellent.
Or speakers,
I
Jim, maybe you could come in and talk to the kids one day. I'd love that.
I would love that as well. I really would. And as a matter of fact, I was looking at the website and I saw the areas of support. By the way, on there are so many different means or avenues of support. And one of
Sure.
them, I saw there was a wish list to Amazon for supplies and different things. I wasn't able to access that, and I wanted to let people know, because I want to be able to do that, because I understand how difficult that is to keep things going and to have the supplies that you need. And those are things that may not mean a lot to some in terms of a financial commitment, but it means so much to the kids in the school.
100%.
So if that's something that somebody has an inkling to get involved with, or a willingness to get involved with, or they feel drawn to that, I would certainly,
I'll make sure I check that and that it's updated. But
please do, because I'm not kidding. I was looking at that the other day and I was like, oh, because Amazon and I are like that, unfortunately. And I was just like, oh, you know what? I don't need to do that I don't need another 2 boxes of paper. Maybe they do. So that was one of those things that I wanted to be able to do. Or for their books.
You're touching on a piece too about the whole, recycling or upcycling piece. It's not just about spending money on the paper or whatever, but we do seek out things that we need through the community quite often, because just recently we needed screwdrivers and hammers. So, everybody has 700 of them in their garage. So instead of buying, which is producing more waste, that's another component that we didn't talk about another day in the podcast world. But,
sure.
We tried to leave the lowest or smallest imprint on the world as we can as well. So there are many things that we get from the community as well that aren't purchased outright.
Thank you for sharing that, because like I said, I do believe that that's an important thing. But anyway, I really appreciate you sharing your background, and there was so much we didn't touch on that I'd love to touch on at another time. And because the 4 pillars of the program, the 3 of which are right up your alley as it relates to corporate involvement, transitional mindsets, health and healthcare, small business. I mean, holy cow. The 4th is the musical piece, but we had talked about that. And I'll come up with something for us as it relates to our playlist for the show. No, my pleasure, because music has been such a big piece of my life. And and that taught me something, that not to assume that everybody is as exposed to music and different musical tastes and genres and times of their lives. Because Tairi's, was your mother or your both parents?
My mother is deaf, and my parents were divorced, so I grew up with my mother.
Your mom, yeah. So Tairi was the beneficiary of learning how to read because of closed captions.
Yeah, I didn't even know that there was sound on a TV until a certain age.
Wow, that's so interesting. That really is, because there's so many people that just go to sleep with the TV on. They just want to hear something. I don't even
like the fan on silence, the sound of silence, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, there you go. There's a Simon and Garfunkel, The Sound of Silence, I think. Maybe.
There is.
I don't know.
Maybe that's the song.
Yeah. There you go. That could be the theme song. So every episode also has a theme. Like one with the VP of HR, it was "Should I Stay or Should I Go," which is a song by The Clash, and it talks about employee retention and keeping them engagement and retention. So it's "Should I stay or should I go" now? Yeah. So "Sound of Silence" could be a fantastic fit. But either way, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate the opportunity. It was lovely speaking to you. And thank you for doing the work that you're doing.
My pleasure. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Well, it's just about time to cue the music for today's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Drop the Needle podcast to stay up to date on our latest episodes. I'd also like to take a moment to thank everyone for tuning in today. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Drop the Needle podcast. A big thanks goes out to our very special guest, Tairi Grace, for joining us today. And I invite you to visit www.ghcfe.org to explore the possibilities of alternative education, or www.senseofsamadhi.com. That's www.senseofsamadhi.com if you're looking for a wonderful yoga studio. Plus, head on over to our show notes where there's a link to the episode 8 playlist. All right, my Drop the Needle posse, like Billy Joel says, from the highs to the lows to the end of the show, this is the end of our show. Until next time, this is Jim Alstott wishing you infinite health, happiness, and the perfect playlist for your life. Thank you again for being the best part of us. Catch you next time.